Use your aggressive feelings, boy. Let the heat flow through you.
Now that the cards have fallen where they may on Gunn Superman and the Rabbit fandom have all calmed down, it's time for me to address the elephant in the room, the Snyderverse. Contrary to what most people might think, there are merits to the Snyder films, but unfortunately, most critics are disingenuous and parrot talking points to stay in the in-group. Yes, there is such a thing. Even on YouTube, there are many depictions of this very phenomena. Example, anti-woke versus the progressives, Marvel versus DC, SJWs versus anti-SJWs, etc, etc. My point is, as long as there are groups of people, there will always be ideas, cause and structure introduced. And since factionalism is a natural part of human behavior, there is always a chance for conflict and in-group preferences. I hope this little lesson has been beneficial to opening your mind on how society works. With that said, I am going to tackle all the Snyderverse films in a series of videos. I know I'm late to this party, but I just got here and I don't care. Let's begin with Man of Steel, and yes, it's the superior movie to Superman 2025. Yes, you can now call me a Snyder fanboy / cultist in the comments and fuck off now. But if you have the patience for a reasonable argument, then stay till the end. You might learn something after all. Man of Steel is a 2013 film by Zack Snyder and tells the story of Superman. The movie is called Man of Steel because it's intended to be Clark Kent's initial debut to the world, and he hasn't earned the name of Superman yet. He is trying to find himself, his purpose, and to do good. The name will be given to him about halfway through the movie. The controversy around this movie is mostly the destruction of Smallville and most of Metropolis. Most critics at the time argued for the fact that Superman wouldn't let that happen, missing the point entirely that this movie takes place in like a week after he gets his suit. I'm not going to lie, at the time, I was pissed too. My idea of Superman is from the comics and mostly Christopher Reeve's version. This is also the reason why, even though I don't like the 2025 Superman, I like David Corenswet. He is the natural upgrade to Reeve. But as I have grown, I have come to really value this movie, and since I have been seeing more trashy clickbait videos condemning Snyder, while praising the adult cartoon we recently got, it's time I spoke my mind. You see kids, you don't need anybody's opinion to like something. We are all humans and we make choices through our time on this planet. So therefore, I do not give a single ounce of fuck about some arbitrary review score. I judge things based on my own merits. And opinions are like arseholes, and everybody has one, and the only thing that comes out of that place is poop. When Superman Returns first came out in 2006, the critics at the time touted it as a love letter to the Reeve Superman. Well, this is true as this is what the movie was going for. But then later, after the MCU kicked off, these same people will now whine about the fact that he never punches anything. Do you see what I'm talking about? The thing is, Reeve Superman, at least in the good ones, also didn't punch anything. It's in Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, that he fights Nuclear Man. But that movie is pure trash, so I don't care much about it. Furthermore, the context in which a film is made matters. The Reeve Superman film came on the back of a little-known conflict from 1955 to 1975 called the Vietnam War. This conflict had led to a protest against the government and spawned the counterculture movement of Make Peace Not War. The Superman movie we got was a way of Hollywood showing optimism and hope for humanity through a father figure and godlike being called Superman. Coincidentally, this is why Superman Returns didn't work, because there was no such thing. In 2006, the war with Iraq was a thing, but most people were in support at the time due to 9/11 still being a fresh event. And the minority voices against it was not mainstream. Hollywood is not stupid, they know where their bread is buttered. But by the time of Man of Steel, this tone had changed. The internet was very much accessible in the palm of our hands, and most of us being online were vocal about our opinions. Society was being organized differently and was observable day by day. Things were happening really fast. Did you forget the Arab Spring in 2011? But I digress. This is the world in which we were given the context of Superman in Man of Steel. And yes, he was absolutely the person that we would have got. And our reception to him was exactly what we would have done. This is why I like this movie. Now I'll give you the reasons why it's superior to Gunn's Superman. First off, we spend a lot of time on Krypton and we get to experience the world and their culture. It's not just a place to incite conquest and possible genocide. Krypton is one of those places that has always been a backdrop in most adaptations of Superman. This was the case in the Reeve version, and this is the same here in Gunn's version. But how do we make a valid judgment on something without understanding it? And by Snyder showing us Krypton, their culture, their people and society, we understand why characters in the movie are the way they are. We learn that Krypton don't do organic birth. They use the codex to ingrain purpose into artificially grown Kryptonians in pods. This is the Genesis Chamber. So when a Kryptonian is born, they have to serve their purpose until their death. We get to understand that it has robbed them of something, the concept of morality. Something is also missing in the society as its people are not free. All they are made to care about is their purpose and duty. Coincidentally, this is why Zod and his ilk are the way they are. They are simply products of their environment. We see that Jor-El commits a taboo, choosing the old ways to birth Kal-El, and as such, he was given freedom to be anything he wanted. Jor-El will be killed for this by Zod. And we also understand that Zod, for all his cruel methods and ruthlessness, deeply loved his people and nation, as he is the one that organizes a coup to remove the council from power in a bid to save the people of his world. But his efforts will be for nothing, as he and his men are arrested and sentenced to the Phantom Zone. General Zod, played by Michael Shannon, was a really underrated part in this movie. At the time, Marvel had a track record of terrible villains in their films, yet the critics were acting like Zod was just a token villain. They were concerned that he just wanted to kill everybody. This take was also disingenuous, as he gives a clear reason for his actions. In the movie, you see his pain of loss when the destruction of Krypton sets him and his squad free from the Phantom Zone. He is determined to make sure Krypton survives through its people. This means that when he is alerted by the distress beacon in the Genesis chamber, he has been given hope and most definitely will come. To him, it's a chance for Krypton to live again, and it's in this premise that we also understand his motivation for why he wants to take the Earth with force. Zod exists to protect the people of Krypton, and to him, we humans are of no consequence. He wants to terraform the planet because he understands that the yellow sun grants them unique abilities in the solar system, but it also means that any Kryptonian child born on the Earth will suffer like Clark and himself did to adapt. He would rather not see that. This is why he wanted to make sure that Earth's atmosphere was like Krypton's, so its people can live well. The byproduct of this action is the death of every human on the planet, but to him it's of no consequence as Krypton comes first. To him, they are the genetically superior life form, and their lack of morality gives them an edge when it comes to doing horrible things like this. You might say that's a heavy theme to be in a Superman film, I get it. And I'll also tell you, how else do you think great countries become great? How do you think Western civilization and even pharaonic civilizations were built? The fact that people didn't want to think about these themes in a Superman film was funny to me. You just wanted to be pampered to. In our own human history, empires are built on the ashes and bones of the weaker opponents. Most nations have nuclear weapons for a reason, and don't tell me it's a deterrent. It has been used before. Might makes right, and you know the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. So again, tell me, why would an artificially born, genetically superior species with godlike power want to share a planet with people they can wipe out with a clap of their hands? To him, we are nothing. But it's in this thinking that it also makes Henry Cavill's Superman shine. But more on that later. But beneath his reasoning, he is also not entirely a monster, as he again feels the pain and hopelessness when the Genesis chamber is destroyed. He becomes that monster in the end to fight Superman because he has no more hope. All he wants to do is destroy the planet to assuage his hopelessness. The only outcome in a fight with such a person is to terminate, and this is what Clark is forced to do in the end. How the fuck do people keep missing this point? There is a reason people with nothing to lose are often avoided by those with something to lose, my friend. And in this fight, Superman has the entire population of the planet to lose, so yes, he did have to kill Zod. I have already mentioned that Superman in this movie is inexperienced, but Snyder still shows what he's capable of in regards to power, and his heroism is clearly on display. I mentioned that critics talked about the distraction in this movie. This was also a personal bone of contention for me when the movie came out. But I have come to realize that my expectations should not be used to dictate the art of an artist. I should critique how the art turned out instead. With that context, the distraction in Man of Steel makes sense. But I still think the distraction in Batman vs Superman was excessive, but more on that later. The first fight scene we get in this movie is Smallville, and this happens because Zod had gone to the family farm and was threatening his mother. Now take a step back and tell me this. What would you do if some guy attacked the woman who birthed or raised you? Yes, if you are anything like me, there will most definitely be blood. Clark has a very human reaction here and is pissed. So yes, smashing Zod through a silo while punching its lights out is completely acceptable reaction. Notice that when he calms down and finds that there is a major fight about to go down, his concern is the protection of the citizens. To stress this point, Fiora makes sure to fight him only in locations where there will be humans, as they know he values human life and they don't. Furthermore, the other opponents in this fight are Kryptonians, highly trained Kryptonians. And what do you think happens when two people fight around Legos? And yes, this analogy is accurate because to these 9 invincible gods, the Earth is nothing more than a Lego shop. That's why we didn't have a chance to begin with. The entire fight scene proves this, as our weapons are ineffective. In BVS, Superman is nuked and he recovers with sunlight. So yes, even our strongest weapon is useless. And in regards to Superman won't let the destruction happen, he didn't. He ends up stopping the world engine in the Arctic, which disables the one actively destroying Metropolis, since they were synchronized. And mind you, this technology is Kryptonian, and he is weaker around it, and he has to use sheer willpower to destroy it. And yeah, this ends up saving the entire fucking planet. It's obvious that from the difference in technological ability between Krypton and Earth, we could have used all our nukes and they simply would have terraformed and kept the planet. We never had a chance nor a prayer. It's Superman that chooses to side with humans, hence giving us the fighting chance. Yet they say there is no hope in this movie. I understand that most people don't like the color palette in this film as it's dark, but just because a movie does not look like a comic book doesn't mean that they made a bad movie. Snyder was going for realism using comic book characters. This was in the vein of Christopher Nolan's Batman films. Now you can say that you don't want that in a Superman film, but it doesn't make the movie bad. Yes, Gunn's Superman looks like a comic book. It also has the mechanics of a comic book. And since we have been fed that look from Marvel films since 2008, most of us has made it a standard of how a comic book should look like. Snyder tried to go a different route, give the DC film its own unique look. Maybe it's not what you wanted, but it doesn't mean it was a bad film. Man of Steel is a Superman origin film through and through. It works as a self-contained Superman story, and it works as an origin movie. But here is the thing, I also get the appeal of the James Gunn movie. It's simple, fun, and bright, like a comic book. But unfortunately, I also like substance in my films. My favorite movies include There Will Be Blood and No Country for Old Men. My palette is not just for comic book films. Man of Steel was a good beginning to build from. It gave us something new in regards to Superman. The unfortunate thing is that Snyder was not allowed to build on this. Given the outrage and reception to this movie when it came out, I understand why Warner Brothers panicked and wanted a course correction in a universe that had just begun. But this was also a mistake, given the movie Snyder was forced to make after this supposed correction. I may like Man of Steel, but I absolutely don't feel that way about Batman vs Superman. That sequel was a film by committee and I have many issues with it, but that is something for the next time. But I hope to leave you with these words before the end of this video. We must make sure that Man of Steel is never forgotten in our history of films. We would actually look back on it one day and value it.